Welcome to the first episode of Breaking Bread. So today's passage is from Revelation 3, verse 20, and it says, "Look, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and we will share a meal together as friends." Now, you knock when you want to come in, and that's the thing. Jesus wants to come into our hearts and come into our lives. Now, the door is a point of entry, but we can decide whether we will open or not. So God gave us a free will, a choice. But why? Well, because he loves us. Love isn't forceful. Love gives a choice. For instance, in poorer countries where children are forced to work against their will for the profit of a businessman, that is considered abuse, not love. And so God doesn't force us. Out of love, he gives us a choice to allow him into our lives or to shut him out. Now, the passage says, "If you hear my voice, open the door." So it says if, right? Because you might hear him or you might not hear him. Now, why? Why will we not hear him? Well, because of the voices of culture, media, friends, even music that's filled with lies might be louder than his voice, God's voice. And now we don't hear him when he calls. But maybe the voices of media, friends, and music isn't that loud in your life. So now you are able to hear him. Now, it's good if you can hear him. But will you choose to respond to what you hear? Because thing is, you can hear and choose not to respond. Well, that's called ignoring. You can pretend that you're not home. For example, my one cousin, her name's Millicent. So she told her mom to tell her friend that she is not home. Now, this friend used to come over very often, but on this day, she asked her mom to tell the friend that she is not home. Now, see, for Millie, maybe her friend was a bit annoying or liked gossip, so she wasn't in the mood for such. But see, people's presence can irritate us, can annoy us, but there is a scripture that says and shows us that God's presence does the complete opposite. So Psalm 84 verse 10 says, "A single day in your courts is better than 1,000 anywhere else." I would rather be a gatekeeper in the house of God than live the good life in the homes of the wicked. This passage shows us that being in Jesus' presence and company is way better than anywhere else. So why not let him in? You won't regret it, trust me. Okay, but let's say you hear and you do open up. I think it's really hard to open up if you've been hurt by people, and scripture says guard your heart above all else, but you don't have to put up a guard or a wall for the God who made your heart. I think a good question is, if you are not opening up the door of your heart to Jesus, to what are we opening it up to? Did we open up our heart to evil, to selfishness, to bitterness, unforgiveness, jealousy, pride, anger, sin? And even if we did open it up to these destructive things, still open it to Jesus, because then he will share a meal, as the passage says, and the meal will take care of the other nonsense we allowed into our hearts. The wine, the blood, does what? It cleanses us from the pride. It cleanses us from bitterness, from sin. We let into our heart. It cleans our hearts and makes room for Jesus. Then remember, I said that sometimes we get hurt, so we don't want to open up, right? So if you opened up, I applaud your courage. But there is something in the meal for you. There is something that can help with your hurt. And that is the bread. And the bread is the body of Jesus. And his body was whipped. And scripture says, by his stripes, by his wounds, there is healing. And so the body brings healing for every hurt that you may have. Now we're going to look at someone who let God in. And we're going to read Luke 19, verse 1 to 10. And it says, Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. There was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. He tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass by. When Jesus came by, he looked at Zacchaeus and called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. He has gone to be a guest of a notorious sinner. They grumbled. Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, I will give half my wealth to the poor, and if I've cheated people on their taxes, I will give them back 4 times as much. Jesus responded, salvation has come to this home today. Maybe salvation can come to your heart today. And it says, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abram. For the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost. Now see, Zacchaeus is proof of how the presence of Jesus in our lives changes us for the better. See, once Jesus entered his home, entered his life, what happened? He wanted to give back to all the people he cheated. Jesus's presence changes us for the better. I mean, he went from stealing money to being a charity donor. So God's presence can change us for the better. So let him in.